Pink Floyd is one of those bands that feels almost mythological. Dark Side of the Moon, The Wall, Wish You Were Here. These aren't just albums, they're cultural landmarks that defined what rock music could be. But behind all that greatness was a relationship between Roger Waters and David Gilmour that was quietly rotting for decades. And if you've ever wondered whether there's any chance of a reunion, any hope at all that the surviving members might share a stage one more time, the answer has basically been put to rest, largely because of things Roger Waters has said and done that David Gilmour cannot forgive. Today, we're breaking down exactly what Roger Waters said that ended Pink Floyd for good. But before we start, if you ever saw Pink Floyd live or have a strong opinion on who was most responsible for the split, drop your perspective in the comments below. This is the story of what Roger Waters said that ended Pink Floyd for good. The tension was always there.
You know, Dave and I, when we were in the south of France, where we did most of the recording of The Wall, we had a quite serious disagreement about the recording of Comfortably Numb.
To understand where things stand now, you have to understand that the bad blood between Waters and Gilmour didn't start with a tweet or political interview. It started the moment the band began to fracture in the mid-'80s. David Gilmour joined Pink Floyd in 1968, stepping in as Syd Barrett's mental health made it impossible for him to continue. For years after that, Waters and Gilmour clashed over creative direction and control. Waters was not known for being collaborative, and as Pink Floyd's commercial success grew, so did the power struggle behind the scenes. By 1985, Waters had had enough. He walked away from the band, and crucially, he assumed his departure would mean the end of Pink Floyd altogether. He invoked a clause in his contract declaring himself the, quote, main creative force behind the group, and in 1986, he formally tried to dissolve Pink Floyd, calling it a spent force creatively. Gilmour and drummer Nick Mason pushed back hard, insisting the band would continue. That decision haunted the relationship between Waters and Gilmour for everything that came after. Waters took his former bandmates to court. Though an agreement was eventually reached and Waters resigned, he noted that his resignation was driven by commercial restraints rather than any genuine change of heart. Decades later, in 2013, Waters admitted to the BBC that he had been wrong to try to dissolve the band. Quote, "Who cares? It's one of the few times that the legal profession has taught me something," he said. But by then, the damage was deeply set. The truce that never really took.
What is your reaction when you hear that 1.5 million tickets have already been sold for this tour with very little publicity? I mean, with almost no publicity, just the name. Everybody knows you say Pink Floyd's coming around. It's been 8 years. You know, the lines form and tickets sell in an hour.
They're just so relieved Roger's gone. I didn't even say that.
There were moments where it looked like the two men might actually move past it. In 2005, Waters rejoined Gilmour and Mason for a celebrated set at Live 8, the massive charity concert organized by Bob Geldof. For many fans, it felt like a genuine thaw, but Gilmour later described Waters at that show as more of a guest than a true band member. The warmth of the reunion didn't last long off stage. In 2010, they played together again at a UK benefit for Palestinian children. In the following year, Gilmour joined Waters on stage during a Wall tour stop at London's O2 Arena. These appearances gave fans hope, but after 2011, they never appeared together in public again. An offer reportedly worth $150 million for a US tour couldn't bring them back together. The money wasn't the issue. Nick Mason, who has somehow maintained friendships with both men, offered a candid assessment in a 2018 Rolling Stone interview. Quote, "I think the problem is Roger doesn't really respect David," Mason said. "He feels that writing is everything and that guitar playing and the singing are something that I won't say anyone can do, but that everything should be judged on the writing rather than the playing." Mason also pointed out that it still bothered Waters that Pink Floyd had simply continued without him. Quote, "It's a constant irritation, really, that he's still going back to it." Mason called the ongoing feud silly and said it was really disappointing that these rather elderly gentlemen are still at loggerheads. The social media years.
David thinks he owns it. I think he thinks that because I left the band in 1985, that he owns Pink Floyd, that he is Pink Floyd. I've nothing that really, I'm irrelevant, and I should just keep my mouth shut and blah.
If the feud had previously lived mostly in courtrooms and interviews, it found a new home online in the 2020s. In 2020, Waters posted a 5-minute video to Twitter airing his frustrations about being locked out of Pink Floyd's official social media channels. Quote, I am banned by David Gilmour from the website. He said, I think he thinks because I left the band in 1985 that he owns Pink Floyd, that he is Pink Floyd, and that I'm irrelevant. Waters revealed in the video that he had met with the surviving band members the previous year trying to move past the tension, but said the meeting bore no fruit. A year later, the re-release of Pink Floyd's 1977 album Animals became its own battlefield. Gilmour told Rolling Stone that a remix had been completed, but that someone had tried to force liner notes onto it that he had not approved, causing the release to stall. Waters fired back on his own website, accusing Gilmour of vetoing the release because he wanted to claim more credit for work done during the years Waters was in the band. In the end, Waters agreed to release the album without his liner notes, publishing them separately on his website instead. It was a small, ugly dispute, but it was telling. These two men could not agree on something as basic as album sleeve text. The political breaking point.
Why won't the United States of America encourage Zelensky, the president, to negotiate, obviating the need for this horrendous war that's killing?
You're blaming.
We don't know how many Ukrainians.
But you're blaming the party
Russians.
that got invaded. Come on, you've got it reversed.
That's you know, any war. When did it start? What you need to do is look at the history, and you can say, well, it started on this day. You could say it started in 2008. Okay, it's basic. This war is basically about the action and reaction of NATO pushing right up to the Russian border, which they promised they wouldn't do when Gorbachev negotiated the withdrawal of the USSR from the whole of Eastern Europe.
The moment that may have truly closed the door forever came from Waters' political statements, particularly those relating to Russia, Ukraine, and Israel. In interviews given to German outlets around 2022 and 2023, Waters appeared to defend Vladimir Putin's rationale for invading Ukraine, suggesting Putin may have had justification based on protecting Russian-speaking populations and opposing what he called rising Nazism in the country. He also drew parallels between Israel and Nazi Germany in its treatment of Palestinians and called himself, quote, a humanist, a citizen of the world. His record label BMG dropped him over his statements about Israel. Waters also claimed in a 2022 Rolling Stone interview that he believed his name had been placed on a Ukrainian kill list. It was these statements that pushed Gilmour's wife and longtime collaborator, Polly Sampson, to go public with her own response. In February 2023, she posted a blistering message on Twitter calling Waters, quote, anti-Semitic to your rotten core. She labeled him a, quote, Putin apologist and a lying, thieving, hypocritical, tax-avoiding, lip-syncing, misogynistic, sick with envy megalomaniac. When asked about the tweet, Gilmour backed her fully. Quote, every word demonstrably true, he said. Sampson later explained her motivation, saying that because Pink Floyd was such a faceless band, people were sometimes confused about which member she was married to. She said people were giving her strange looks, and she wanted to make absolutely clear that those views were not hers or her husband's. Waters denied the characterizations, calling Sampson's comments, quote, incendiary and wildly inaccurate. But the public nature of the exchange made any reconciliation seem nearly impossible. No road back.
How can I be clearer? It's not going to happen. You can't recapture the past. It's just, it's a vain and sometimes valiant attempt to recreate something, but you tell me a time that it's actually worked and hasn't just been more or less a nostalgia trip.
In an October 2024 interview with The Guardian, Gilmour was asked directly whether he would ever perform with Waters again. His answer was unambiguous. Quote, absolutely not. I tend to steer clear of people who actively support genocidal and autocratic dictators like Putin and Maduro, he said. Nothing would make me share a stage with someone who thinks such treatment of women and the LGBT community is okay. Gilmour also noted that the death of keyboardist Rick Wright, who passed away in 2008, makes the idea of a true Pink Floyd reunion moot in his eyes. Wright had been one of the band's emotional anchors, and Gilmour said he would love to be back on stage with him. In a separate Rolling Stone interview from September 2024, Gilmour called the ongoing feud boring, saying it had become, quote, totally irrelevant to him. He left our pop group when I was in my 30s, and I'm a pretty old chap now, he said. He added that the whole thing felt like a one-sided conflict that Waters kept reigniting at varying intensities. Gilmour seemed far more interested in his solo work, including his album Luck and Strange, which he believed to be his finest in 50 years. The feud, for Gilmour at least, appeared to be something he had moved well past. What Roger Waters said about Putin, about Ukraine, about Israel, those weren't just controversial opinions. For Gilmour, they were a line that ended any remaining possibility of Pink Floyd coming back together. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think Roger Waters' political statements were the true breaking point, or do you think the split between him and Gilmour was always inevitable from the moment Waters left the band in 1985? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below.